to start recording?
Yep, the dot's up there.
It says recording.
Yeah, usually it says you're now recording, but okay. All right, so then also, you know what, I'm going to close out Discord so we don't just keep hearing beeps all the time. Goodbye. Beeps. All right, so using these assets is, okay, blah, 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 blah. And then once you've replaced them into that sprites folder, you can test your game by just opening up the sample scene.unity and playing it inside of Unity. And then what you're actually going to be turning in is you're just going to rename your folder that you created, that you saved your environmental assets, the original folder that you downloaded and unzipped. Put the right naming convention on, upload it into Blackboard. And then what I'll be doing to grade this to make sure that it's doing what it needs to do is I'll just be taking these folders and replacing the assets in my Unity project. So when I pull it up, I should see all the environmental assets there. If I don't see it, there's some kind of problem, you know, either with naming or you didn't do the asset or something like that. And then I'll grade based on that. Now the grading rubric is fairly simple. The replaced assets are worth 75%. Each of those have a percentage value. So if you miss the bush, you lose like, 2 points on that. Then the format is 10% of your grade, which is everything's inside of a zip file, and then handing it on time or and also with the appropriate naming convention is worth 15%. All right, any questions on that? All right, so let's take a look at stuff. So first of all, let's take a look at this reference sheet. So the reference sheet has 17 different things on it. Now I'm giving you 2 weeks on this project. We'll talk about what the requirement is for replacing it. I'm not going to require you to, if you want to repaint all these things, if you happen to be an artist and you want to, that's fun for you, and you want to recreate it all original, that's fine with me. If you want to just cobble stuff together or do your best with reference images, different things like that, that's fine too. I'm not worried about copyright. My assumption is you're not going to try to publish this. That's the only time, education, we're covered as long as it's just where we're using stuff for education. But the minute you start trying to publish this, if there's any kind of copyright images with copyright, you're going to get a nasty letter and probably a fine and stuff like that. So what you create with this is up to you. You can make these anything you want them to be. You can make them connect to the game you've been thinking about, as far as the planning process and the mood boards and stuff like that. If you want to make it something totally different, that's fine too. I'm kind of changing things, just to be honest with you, I'm changing things a little bit just because of the COVID thing and stuff that's going on. Towards the end of the semester, I think things are going to get a little bit difficult for you guys. And I don't want you to be super worried about this class. Obviously, I want you to do the class and I want you to be successful in the class. But there are other classes. This is kind of an elective class, so there are other classes that you're taking that should have your priority. So I'm going to pretty much do what you want to do. As long as it works, all of them kind of go together the way they're supposed to, and technically they all fill in, then that's fine. Now, the next thing we're going to do, like I said, is we're going to play around with the animation stuff. We'll probably play around with the UI a little bit, some of the effects, things like that. And then ultimately what you're going to be doing is all the assets that you replace, you're going to be then creating a brand new level and just making your own, sort of like what you did with Battle Block Theater, make your own level out of it. But it's going to be very loose. I'm not super, this is mainly just to get you experience working inside the Unity platform, or the Unity engine. It's not to create anything super impressive that we're going to, show the world. Now, if you do want to do that, that's fine. Just keep your expectations where they need to be. Don't spend hours and hours on this to the detriment of your other classes. If you want to continue with this after the fact and you want to you know, continue working on your platform and continue creating your platform to the point that you are able to publish it, then you just need to read through all of the Unity rules and regulations and things like that. The tutorial is up there so you learn how to do a platformer. You just want to make sure you're working within the specs, and you don't have to pay for Unity until you make a certain amount. I mean, you gotta, they change them pretty regularly, so you want to go in there and really read about it. But that's, you only need to do that if you're actually going to publish the platform. If you're just going to do an executable that you can share with your friends and have a laugh or have fun with it, don't worry about it. It's only if you're going to put it on Steam or a website or something like that and try to make money off it that you have to worry about it. All right, so let's go through each of the assets. Let's actually open up the project folder here. Let's see, where am I? Okay. If you hear snoring, that's my pit bull behind me. Oh, great. Where did I put it? Oh, here we go. Okay, so let's open up this the Unity platformer.
By the way, week 10 isn't on Blackboard anymore.
What is it?
Week 10. I just looked, it's not on Blackboard. It's just 9, then 11.
Did I give you a week 10 on a folder? I don't think I did give you a week 10 folder. I think that I just had you move on with the last week. I think I just had you move on with the tutorials.
Okay, so where are the assets where we're taking those trees and stuff?
They're going to be a week 11.
Okay.
Do you see them there? Okay, so just to open your level quickly, you can go into assets, scenes, and a couple of different things you can do. You can actually duplicate this and rename it something else if you want to keep the sample scene clean and use that duplicate. I'm just going to go ahead and open this up, and we'll take a look at what each of these things are doing. While that opens up, we'll take a look at this. So we basically you've got the important ones as far as making sure you keep the same size are going to be obviously the tiles. All the tiles are 100 by 100. The fence is tiling horizontally, so you're going to need to make, if you do a new fence piece, or that can be actually anything. It can be a guardrail, it can be, you know, whatever you want it to be, but it is a tileable item, so you're going to want to make sure it tiles on the left and right. Same with the middle ground, same with the mountains, and the other tiles. And I'll show you. Did I give you guys I think I gave you a tutorial on how to do tileable graphics. Did I do that? Do you guys remember? If not, not a big deal. I'll take you through it. It's not a super hard thing to do. All right, so let's go into our project here. So this is what we have right now. We have the game, and you can see how each of the tiles are being used. So if I hit play on this, I've got something in the way here. There we go. So if I hit play on this, hopefully it's not super loud. As we walk through here, you can see how each of the tiles are being used. Now we have one thing we have going on is something called a parallax effect. And that parallax effect is, you can see that all of the different layers, there's different layers to the game. So you've got the foreground layer has the ground plane, it has the tiles for the like sidewalk or whatever it is you're running on. It's got the trees and the bushes and the fence, and those are all moving on one layer. Behind that is the buildings, and that's moving on. You can tell it's on a different layer because it moves at a different rate. And then behind that is a mid-ground layer. And then behind that is the mountains and the clouds. So all of our active items are happening here. All of the active items are happening that front layer. Now you can actually, I know you guys have already done this, but I'll just show it to you again. You can actually switch this to 3D and see the separation between the layers. So if you go to 3D on the in Unity, you can see how the layers are actually laid out. Now this is important, and this is something that, it's interestingly enough, I most often have problems with programmers on this because they don't think about how this is being done graphically. But it's important to know, because when you put assets in, you can change the Z value, even though it's in 2D, you can change the Z value of the asset to place it behind something else. So if you have something that's popping in front that's not supposed to be popping in front, you can just go ahead and change that asset, change the Z value of the asset inside of the hierarchy here. Okay, so let's go back to 2D. So we have, basically, we have all of these different assets put together to create this level. Now you've got each of these, like I said, are on different layers so that they move separately. You can see where the tiling is happening. So you've got the tiling in the ground, you've got tiling in when you're doing the underground, it's giving you a darker tile to simulate caves. But things like the clouds and the trees and the bush, none of those are actually tiled. So you can pretty much place those where you want to place those. And the same thing with the buildings and the house and stuff like that. Those aren't tiled either. So, you know, you have a lot of latitude as to what you build. And when you do your final platformer, you know, if you just want to edit this platformer, that's fine. If you just want to edit this level, that's fine. If you want to create something from scratch, that's fine too. It's going to be a pretty daunting project, but if you want to do it, that's fine. The other thing we're going to work on this semester is, we've really got 3 things that we need to work on this to finish out the semester, and that's the static assets, which we're doing today, the animated assets, which we're going to do next week, and then the sound, replacing sound. I do want to go through a couple of sound editing programs of where you can get sound effects and free music and stuff like that. And I want to show you how to use that stuff if you want to create custom sounds and things, so that you've got that kind of in your kit as well. So at the end of the semester, hopefully you'll have a completely different platformer with new sounds. Probably the guy's going to be the same, just because we're not going to have time to do a lot of the animation, but new enemies, new pickups, and new static assets. All right, so that's where all this stuff is inside of Unity. Now, if we go to the Unity folder and we take a look at where things are, so if you go to, everything you're going to be working with is going to be in assets. So if you go to assets, the scenes is where your scene file is. We already talked about that. And again, you can duplicate that scene and create a new one. The other folder that you're going to, the other folders you're going to look at are environment, character, and audio. So this is kind of where all of the different assets are that we're going to be playing around with. So if you go into environment, you see you have 2 folders and then some meta files. One folder is tiles, one folder is sprites. The ones inside the sprite folder are the ones that you're going to have to replace in order to change the game. So let me show you an example of that. I already created, downloaded a tree and made it into a PNG and made it into, have a transparent layer. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take this tree, which is relatively the same size as this tree, and I'm going to replace this tree in that folder. Now, before that, I do that, I am going to go in here and I'm going to take that environment folder and I'm just going to make a backup of it just for the sake of this walkthrough. You'll be making a backup of the entire project, so that's, you know, you'll be covered. All right, so inside of assets, and then we want to go inside of environment. Or did I just, oh, I pulled it out of there. That was smart, huh? Okay, so bring that back. All right, so inside of environment, Now, if you look at the sprite for the tree, you can see that it's called tree.png, and that's what you're going to do is you're basically going to rename your assets, make sure your assets are named the same as these, and then just replace them by just dragging and dropping them and approving the replacement. Okay, so I renamed that to tree.png. I'm going to copy this in here. And now you can see that I have this new tree. So now let's go back to scenes. I want to make sure that that Unity is not running. You want to quit between this because sometimes it will update it with a project that's already open. Sometimes it won't. So you want to just to be sure about that, just quit out of your Unity project and then reopen it. And it should have everything in there. So now I'm going to open up sample scenes, cross my fingers. Hopefully I did it in the right folders. I think there's also, I'll look at it. I'm remembering that there's a button where you can refresh in Unity. It's been a while since I used it, so I remember where it is. And you can see now that I have my trees in here. Now the trees obviously have an issue because they're not sitting on the ground, but they are in the platformer, which is what I was looking to do. So now I do play, and now I have all my trees are different trees. So in this way, you'll be able to completely change the visuals on inside of this game. All right, so that's the process by which you're going to replace these assets. Now let's talk a little bit about how you're going to actually create the assets you replace. Now you've got a number of different options. You've got, you can download stuff off the web. That's what I did with this tree. Is I basically downloaded a tree, a picture, and that was a PNG that had transparent background. I just sized it appropriately in there, and that's what I ended up with. You can paint them yourself. You can do a combination of the two. You can do, if you want to like cut out and put things together and cobble things together, that's fine too. Whatever you want to do, just, I know it sounds silly. Teachers always say this, but, just have fun with it, and don't get too bogged down in the process. All right, so let's say we want to, I don't know, let's do a bush this time. Or a shrubbery. We'll do a shrubbery. I always have to be careful what I type on the internet. You never know what's going to pop up. Okay, so here's a nice shrubbery. So we're going to download this, save this, and bring it to desktop. And save it. I'm saving it in a separate folder called static assets. That's where I'm saving my originals. And then I'm going to bring that into Photoshop. I've already got Photoshop open, so I'm just going to bring that into Photoshop by dragging the image over the Photoshop icon, which opens up Photoshop. And then if I drag it to this bar right here where it says, it'll say copy on it, that'll open it up as a separate image. Okay, so here's my shrubbery. So the first thing I want to do is check and make sure that it is actually transparent. So I'm going to go make a new layer, drag it under the shrubbery layer, and I'm going to fill that with black. So select the layer, edit, fill, and I'm going to fill that with black. Okay, so we can see that there's issues with this shrubbery. The person that cut it out didn't do a very good job. So we're going to go, I'm just going to go in. I'm going to do a few of these. I'm not going to do the whole thing. But what we can do to very quickly get rid of these white spaces is just grab our magic wand tool, go to that layer and just click inside the areas where those spaces are, where the white is, and just click in there, select it, and delete. Another way you can do this is that you can go to select color range, and then using the eyedropper, click on the white, and it should try to select all of the different white areas on that. Okay. Oh, I was doing image. That's why. So let's do that again. So select color range, and then for whatever reason, that's not working for me right now. Anyway, so I'm just going to go through with the magic wand and get rid of some of this stuff. But again, it's not going to, you know, I'm not going to do the whole thing. And it's probably even better just to find something that you don't have to clean up too much. You could end up spending a lot of time doing this, but this is one way to get rid of those kind of white areas there. All right. So I've cleaned up my shrubbery, and now I have it the way I want it to be. And now I've got to figure out, you know, the size and different things like that. So if I go to my environment assets folder and I open up my reference image, come on now, you're messing with me. And I look at the shrubbery. We've got it's 64 by 58, so it's pretty small. So I'm going to go into Photoshop and take a look at that, see how that looks at that size. So I'm going to go say image size, and what was it, 54 by 68, I think. So image size right now it's 56 across. So I'm going to just do 54, and because it's doing a uniform scale, it'll scale the whole thing together. Now that is pretty small. That's a tiny little bush. So that may not be workable for you, or you maybe want to play around with saving it a little larger and see how it affects the game. But we'll just do it this way for now. So now I want to save this as a PNG, and there's a quick way to do this that does a better job of optimizing it than just doing file save. And that's to hold down Control, Alt, Shift, and then the S key. And what that brings up is Save for Web menu. Now, Save for Web is nice because it's already optimized to save it, you know, with as little memory as possible, but still retain the image. And you've got different options you can put on here. Now, first of all, the presets you can do. Generally, I'm either doing JPEG high, and that's for things that don't have transparency, or I'm doing PNG 24, and that's for things that do have transparency. So I'm going to go ahead and hit save, and give it a name. I don't remember what it's called inside that folder, so we'll just call it Bush. And so it's plant. So where did I save that? Now, when you do the save for web, make sure that when you save it, you look at where you actually saved it. So that should be in static assets. Why isn't it there? Huh. Oh, I think what I did is I changed the name of the file. So we'll do that. Okay. Something's odd. Okay, save. Where is this now? Status assets, projects. Oh, that's why it's because I'm not doing it on the desktop. Okay, so static assets. And we're going to say bush. Or actually, I should have said plant, because that's actually what it's going to be. So if I change this now to plant, and I open up my assets inside of the Unity folder. So I'm going to go to Environment, Sprites. I'm going to find Plant, and I'm going to drag and drop this in here. And I'm going to replace that. And again, now let's just see what happens if we just open it right up. Yeah, see, if you open it right up, it changes that for you. So it's there. That's kind of finicky sometimes. Sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. So if it for some reason doesn't work when you open it up and it doesn't replace the asset, just close it and reopen it. All right. So now let's talk about a tileable image. So the way you do tileable images, it's kind of just a quick trick inside of Photoshop. So I'm just going to make something fresh. So I'm going to start a new image. So file, new, and I'm going to say 100 by 100. Great. Okay, so then I'm going to start a new layer, do a new layer. And I'm just going to do something similar to what's on there right now, just play around and make sure it's tiling the way it's supposed to. So let's first fill it with a color. Let's just do like kind of a sand color, like so. Edit, fill, foreground color. Okay, there's my sand color. And now I'm just going to draw kind of just do a pattern through it with a brush in a slightly darker color. Okay, so let me see what this looks like. No, I don't like that. So now this is my brush. My brush is kind of big right now, and it's soft edged. If you did some of the tutorials and stuff, this is familiar stuff for you. So what I'm going to do is a couple different ways of doing this. If you want to be super accurate, you can bring down a line, a guide to show you where you want to end on something. Or you can just kind of fudge it once you've created the shape. So I'm just going to kind of go through, and that's not good. Let's see, let's bring my size down. I'm just doing a pattern. I'm trying to loosely get the match the sides of it, because what I'm going to do is actually pull those together and match them. All right, so this is my my tile. Right now, it's not going to tile. I know that for sure. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to say image canvas size. So this is, you're not changing the image size, you're actually changing the canvas and how much room there is on the canvas. So right now it's at 100 by 100. What I want to do is I want to double the size of it so I can put 4 of these tiles together to see how they work. So I'm going to go and I'm going to say 200 by 200. You can do that by percentage the same way. And down here, you've got the anchor, and this will actually, if you set this anchor, you can decide where this tile ends up. And since it's going to be a 2 by 2 tile, I'm going to put it in the upper left corner. And by clicking on that what I say when I confirm that, it places that tile in the upper left corner. So the tiling the top and bottom is obviously not going to be hard because those colors are already there. It's really this middle line that's going to be a problem. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to first duplicate this tile. Now the quick way to do that is to just make sure you're on the move tool, hold your move tool, and then hold down the Alt key. And then you can just drag a copy of that off. And if you've got smart guides on there, it will automatically lock it where it needs to go. All right. So we can see that it's actually not bad. The tiling's not really that bad, but we definitely want to play around with it and make sure it works. So I'm just going to go in here, and now what I'll do is I will merge all of these together. So if I go to the top one and I hit Control E, it merges each of the layers down until it becomes one layer. And now I'm just going to repaint in there and try to match that that image, so it does, or match those, just get rid of that seed. So I'm going to paint. Okay. Now I've got to do it on both of these. So instead of doing that, what I'm going to, since I'm only really tiling one direction, I don't need to have this down here. So I'm actually going to change the canvas size back to height of 100. Because I know it's gonna, I know it's going to tile up and down, so I don't need to do the vertical part of this. So make that 100. Okay. All right. So now I've got this tiled together the way I want it to tile together. Now what I need to do is I need to duplicate this again and just set them next to each other, like so. And now I know because these are both the same. I know that these two are going to match fine, regardless of where this is. These two are going to match fine. Now, if I join those together and I paint that through, paint that center area up again, and just like that. Now I can crop this to 100 by 100, and it's going to be a tileable. Image. So let's go ahead and do our canvas size again, canvas size, and take this step back down to 100. Okay. All right, so now this is a tileable image. I know I'm comfortable with this being a tileable image because I went through that process. I'm going to just crop this one more time to make sure that there's nothing on the outside of that. And then I'm just going to take this tile and I'm going to move, make other tiles and just make sure that it tiles the way I want it to tile. So you can see that's totally seamless now. If I go the other direction, so it's seamless on both ends. So really the key to making a tileable image is to just create the tiles, make the tiles, and then put them into that grid and paint the lines in between. And once you paint those lines in between, as long as you stay with the same size tile, that's going to tile just fine. Okay, so now I basically got my tileable image. We'll use that as the ground plane. So let's do, where is that? Okay, so the tile grounds, we're going to use that as the tile ground. So I'm going to save this. I'm going to do, this is still a PNG because that's what it's asking for in that folder, and you want to replace with the same type of file. So it's still a PNG. I'm going to save this. I'm going to go to static assets, make sure it's the one on the desktop. And I'm going to call this ground. Okay. So now I've got my ground inside of here, and I need to replace this one over here. This is the one for the Unity platformer. So I'm just going to, just to make sure I do it right, I'm just going to go ahead and copy this name over here, copy, and just change this name over here by pasting it in, and then drop that in, replace, and now I've replaced my tile. So let's see if all of my hard work in replacing that tile and making sure it was tileable, let's see if that actually worked, and check it inside of the scene. And there you go. You can see that the tile is actually working. So that's basically how you would replace a tileable image. Now, that works for images that, a tile that is horizontal and vertical. The difference is the horizontal one, you only have to duplicate the tile on the one time, like horizontally, whereas with the, if it's going both directions, you've got to duplicate that on the top and the bottom to create that tileable texture. Does anybody have any questions? I went through that. I'm not sure if you got that. If you want me to go through it again, I can certainly do that. No? Okay. All right. And you have the, like Lola said, this is all recorded. So that's, you can go back and look at that. All right, so let's do one more tile. Now I'm going to do the shadow inside the area that is supposed to be the caves. And in that case, I'm not gonna get super creative with that. I'm basically going to just change this one a little bit. So I'm going to go and I can adjust the color fairly simply. If you go under the image adjustments thing, first you want to make sure that this is a single layer. Okay, so select my layer and I go under image adjustments, and I can do it a number of different ways. I can do it using brightness contrast, I can use levels, I can do hue saturation. Let's do that one. So I'm going to make this a little bit darker, but I'm going to bring up the saturation just because I don't want it to be like kind of dull looking. I just want it to be a slightly darker version of the ground. And then I'm going to do the Control-Alt-Shift-S to save for web. I'm going to save that. I'm going to make sure I'm in the right folder. And I'm going to call this, I'll just say DK ground. All right, so now I've got the dark ground, and then I'm going to go in and open up my environment sprites and find the name, the appropriate name. And rename it that. And then I'm going to just copy this in here. And I'm also going to save a copy of this. All right, and then go back into my game. And we can see now that the cave, the darker cave tiles are now working within the game. So you just keep going on like that. Just just working with that idea. And when you're doing the tiles, any of these tiles are going to be 100 by 100. So as long as you stick with 100 by 100, you should be fine. If you grab a texture off the web, let's say we want to do let's do a brick for the different the floating tiles. So let's find a nice brick material or texture. So I'm going to say brick, and it doesn't need to be a PNG because it doesn't need to be transparent, but you do want to say something like brick wall or brick texture just to get the right thing. If you just say brick or brick wall, what's going to happen is you're going to get like, a scenic shot with a brick wall in it. But if you say brick wall texture, it will bring up a flat texture of brick. So this is what you get. Whereas if I said brick wall, I probably would have gotten something, something different. So I'm just going to grab this texture here. That looks nice. You can see that sometimes they put, depending on where the texture is coming from, they put a watermark on it. You can see there's a watermark on this one right here. If you want to avoid that, just go into, there's this thing called Creative Commons. So if you just do, say, brick wall texture, and you say Creative Commons, this will give you options that don't have the watermark. Creative Commons is basically there for people that are, just sharing. It's kind of like an open source type thing. They share all there's no copyright on them, and you can just use them freely. Particularly nice for textures. Textures are, that can be difficult to find something good that isn't owned by some stock house or something like that. All right, so let's just grab this one right here. Just generic texture. The other thing you want to look at is try to make sure that it's tileable or close to being tileable, because that's something you're going to have to do to make that work. You're going to have to tile those images. So this looks fairly decent. Definitely something I can work with. I'm going to go back to this here, and I'm going to save this, save image. And then again, I'm going to save that in the static assets. All right, and then I'm going to bring that into Photoshop and figure out what I'm going to do with it. All right, so that's Photoshop. So first of all, I got to cut out a 100 by 100 chunk of it. So probably the best thing to do is just do a new image, or even use the tile image that you did before. I'm going to save this out, save as, and I'll probably put that in static assets too. I'm going to save this out as a just a general Photoshop file, so I can just open this up anytime I want and do a new tile. So I'm going to save that. And now I'm going to grab that brick and move that into this Photoshop file. Now, the way you can move layer from one Photoshop file to another, you just peel off the layer that you're going to move off of the interface. And then you just grab that. When that's selected, you can grab that layer here and then just drag and drop it into another layer on the interface. And now you can see that I've got the brick layer here. Now, obviously, this brick layer is very large in comparison to what we're working with. So I'm gonna back this up a little bit. And now I want to change the size of the brick layer. This I can put back onto the interface, get it out of the way. Now, if I hit Control T, I've got that layer selected here, and I hit Control T, that shows me the boundaries of that layer. And now I can scale this to a size that's more manageable. And I'm looking at it and I'm trying to keep an eye on how I can make it tileable. So one of the things you'll notice is, let me undo that. I'm just going to move this so it's more centered so we can move in closer on it. Okay. And then Control T. And I grab the edges. Now, one of the things first of all, Photoshop is now set up that if you don't hit the Shift key, it automatically scales uniformly. If you want to scale it non-uniformly, you have to hold the Shift key in order to do that. Also, you can scale from one side just by default, or you can also hold down the Alt key and it will scale in the center like so. But what I'm looking for is I'm looking to scale this in a way that I actually have the edges matching on the top and bottom, because that allows me to do a better job of just tiling horizontally rather than having to do both horizontally and vertically. I also wanted to have enough bricks in there that I can actually create a decent tile. So what I was doing was the bricks were a little bit too big. So I'm going to go with something like this. Okay. All right. Now here's the beginning of my tile. Now again, we're going to do that same thing we did before. We're going to, because we got to tile both directions, we're going to go to Image, Canvas Size, and I'm going to say 200 by 200. Make sure that this is set to place the tile up there. Now, before we do this, if I do this right now, because I scaled this, just because I see this texture, if I do the Control T, you can see I still have all of this extra on the outside. If I try to scale increase the size of the canvas, it's not going to cut this stuff off. So what I need to do before I increase the size of the canvas is I need to actually crop this to get rid of all that extra stuff that's on the outside in the pasteboard area. So I just select that tile and say crop. And now when I hit Control T, you can see it's just the boundaries of the image itself. And that's how we want it before we start doing the tile. Can somebody keep it? What do we go to? 230 or 2?
220.
220. Somebody want to just keep an eye and just give me a heads up when we're at 5 minutes, because I have a tendency to ramble on, so I may miss it. So like at 2:15. All right, so now I'm going to change the canvas size. So Image, Canvas Size. I'm going to go 200 again and 200, and I'm going to have it place the anchor in that top left corner. And now again, I'm going to hold down my Alt key to make a duplicate. And I'm just going to snap that in there and see how close we got. Oops. All right, so the horizontal is not bad. It could be a little bit thinner, but it's fine for my purposes. Up here, we've got some issues that we've got to figure out. So, just trying to figure out how we can actually fix that. It's a number of different things you can do in Photoshop with patching and different things like that. First thing I'm going to do is I'm just going to grab pieces from other places to put them in there. So I'm going to grab, a good way to do that is to use the clone stamp tool. So now the clone stamp tool, generally you want to go with a soft brush, because if it's soft, it will blend in better. If it's hard, it won't blend in very well. So what I want to do is I want to grab this part right here and put it in here. So I'm going to size my brush to about the size of that area, be a little high, a little bigger. And now with the clone brush, what you do is you hold down the Alt key and you get this target. And what that target will do for you now is when you click on that target, it'll record the distance between where you are here and where you start painting. And then it will paint whatever is that distance from it. So if I click here, and then I bring that over. Oh, the other thing is you got to make sure everything's on a single layer. So let's make everything a single layer. Okay, now it'll work. So now I'll click here. And as I come over, you can see that it's creating that, it's basically painting that texture over there into this area. And then you can kind of just, you know, you can mess just with the first one, you can just kind of I'm going to hold down my shift key and do that. And that starts to actually to match things up. Now there's places like here that looks a little odd that we can adjust. But that's a quick way to do it. And keep in mind that this is not going to be a super you know, detailed texture that we're going to be seeing. It's going to be in the distance and things like that. So, you know, you really want to look at this from a distance and look at the things that are going to look very kind of duplicating when you do the tile. So I want to do something different here. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to grab my clone stamp tool, and I'm going to grab a different, let's see, maybe merge those together. So I'm going to grab like a similar color right there and just merge those together like that. You know, you're really just trying to get rid of anything that looks like a tile. So this right here, just to heal that area so it doesn't, you know, you want to try to keep it so from duplicating. So you use other bricks and kind of bring them in, things that are similar colors, kind of bring them in like that until you have what you want. Now I'm doing this very fast, so it looks kind of crappy, but it's really the point of it is just showing you how to do it. So we've managed to make this look less tiled, and it matches a little bit better here. It's not what I would do as a final thing because it's kind of it's not very you know, I didn't take time on it, but for our purposes right now it's close enough. So we have this painted here. Now again, the key to this is to change this back into a 100 by 100 tile by going to Image, Canvas Size, and saying 100 by 100. Okay, proceed. Now, if I take this layer and I pull it off, you can see that it still has that 200, it still has that larger image. So I could actually go through this image and find the stuff that I like best. So I want to make sure that we've got a little bit of the top of the cement on the top and bottom. And let's say that's the one I kind of dig. So now what I'm going to do is just save that out. And I'm going to save it as a PNG 24, and I'm going to call this brick for now. Now, the other thing I want to do is I want to do something that has a top to it, so it looks like the top of a brick wall. So in case I have a wall that I want to create, and also for the tiles for the caps. So I'm just going to go into my thing here and find maybe a different type of brick, maybe a gray brick or something like that, that I can use to create that line at the top. Gray, maybe like some cement, whatever it is, you know, just really just kind of playing around with it and seeing what we like. So I'm going to save image to static assets. Right, I'm going to open that image. Where is it? Okay, open this up. And I'm going to grab a chunk of this. Maybe get a little bit of, you want to try to avoid too much detail because that detail can become something that looks tiled. But we'll do that, and then we'll go to my original tile here. Now I'm actually going to do a separate layer for this because I can do a couple of things with drop shadows and stuff like that. So I'm going to go ahead and paste this in, and then I'm going to scale it down like so. So now this will be my, this will represent the middle tile. Now, right now, it just looks like a slash of gray on top of the brick. I can make that look slightly more realistic by adding a drop shadow to it. So I'm going to go to that layer, that brick layer, or that gray cement layer. I'm going to go double click on it and then do drop shadow. And that gives me a little bit more of what I want right there. And I can adjust that drop shadow to make it more intense or do whatever I want with it. Let's do the size. So if we do the size, that's pretty good. And it doesn't need to be that far away from it. So that's pretty good. Okay, so I've got a reasonably decent looking tile of this now. But keep in mind that we haven't tiled this yet. We haven't actually made this so it matches. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to duplicate my brick because I want to keep one clean version of the brick. I'm going to select my cement up here, and I'm just going to hit Control E. And what that does is it brings it down, and it also takes those layer styles and puts those makes those part of the image. And then for this, in this case, I can do this just by turning off all these tiles. Oh, see, now what do? I'm not scaled down yet. Let's see, I screwed up that thing. Okay. All right, so then what I'm going to do is I'm going to take this. First, I'm going to crop it, make sure it's cropped. And then I'm going to, in this case, what I can do, I mean, you don't have to do the canvas, make the canvas larger. You can just do it inside of this area. So you can see that right here, it's not that bad. I'm going to go ahead and just do my healing brush again, or my clone tool. Grab this and just kind of make sure it's down like this. Just kind of, okay, good. You know, there's other things you can do just with the edge of that to make it look not so harsh. You can, you know, put a little bit of a shadow in there, or maybe a little bit of a glow. But the important thing is this is the size. This is the this gives us that sense of being having a ledge on it. No, I did something funky with this. No, that's okay. That's good. All right. So now I'm going to save this as the brick ledge. Let's see. So save. And we'll call it top. All right. So now let's look at where these are going to work. So we have the, we can do something with the floating tiles. We'll maybe do that in a minute. But I want to look at the ground. So the ground top. So if we actually make this brick, the one brick, the ground layer, which obviously is not going to look great because it's going to be all brick, but we'll just do it for the experiment. So I'm going to go tile ground. No, I want to go. Okay, and then I want to copy that over, replace it. And now if I go to tile ground top, that's what I'm going to use the brick top for. Okay, and now this is going to look freaking ridiculously weird because it's going to be all brick, and it's so small that you're really seeing that tile. But you can see what's happening here is I've created that brick, and then I've got this topper, and that's giving me like kind of that ground level. So I can do the same thing and put the ground underneath that and make it like a sidewalk. I can, any number of different things I can do with that. The point is that that's, it looks kind of crappy because I did it quick, but that's how you would actually take these images, take images from the web and, recreate them as something inside of the game. Let's do something really stupid and let's just do a building. Let's do a, I don't know. We want to do something that we can grab and use that's not too 3D. Let's do building front. Okay, there we go. There's something there. Okay, let's go with this one. That's fun. Save image. Save it here. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to bring this in and I'm going to use it to create one of the create a building. And what I'm doing is basically just taking stuff off the web and cutting it out, but you can also do the same type of thing, but use it as a reference and just paint over it to make it look kind of funky. And there's lots of stuff you can do inside of Photoshop, just experimenting with it. Let's first cut the building out and then we'll look at what we can do to kind of make it interesting. All right, so it's nice because it's a front view. It's got, it's got pretty hard lines there. So we can actually just kind of go through and cut this out like so. I'm just going to do it quick. I'm not going to get super anal about it because I want to get this done before the end of class. So let's see, we'll go straight up here. Wow, it's kind of odd shaped, isn't it? Oh, no, not really. Okay, so we're going to go up to here, right about there, and then there. And I'm holding down my shift key to get that straight line. That's why I can do that straight line is by holding the shift key down. And then here, there. It's not going to be perfectly cut out, but we'll get the point. All right. So now what I'm going to do is I've got that selected. I'm going to do Control C, Control V. And now you can see I have that isolated, and this is the beginning of my building. Now there's lots of cool stuff we can do with this. If we want to make it look a little bit funky, we can change colors on it. We can go into image or edit, transform, or perspective warp or puppet warp. And if we do puppet warp on this, we can actually change the or do the perspective warp or any of the warps. We can change the shape of it. So let's look at transform and warp. So I'm gonna just make this kind of like a fun cartoon type building by just taking the warp tool and using it in a way to make it look a little bit more extreme. Okay, so that's that, and then I'll change the color on it. So image adjustment, let's go with hue saturation. So then I'm going to change the hue on it and make it a weird purple building. I'm going to bring up the saturation a lot and bring up the lightness a little bit. And there we go. They got this bizarre purple brick building in 2 seconds flat. Now I'm going to select this and crop it so it's a tight PNG. So I'm going to select this like so by holding down my control button and putting my finger inside that window. You see that little dotted line shows up. That means you're going to select the contents of that layer. So I'm going to left click on that, select the contents of the layer. You can see the dotted line on that. And then I'm going to go to image crop. Okay. So the next thing I need to do is check my sizing. So I'm going to go into my folder and I'm going to bring up my handy dandy reference sheet, and the tall building is 350 by 512. So I'm going to scale this image size. So it's 350 by 512. I'm going to just make the width 350 and just leave it at 637 like that. Okay, and then I'll do the save for web, which again is Control Alt S. And I'm going to call it building. And go to my, open up my assets folder where I've been changing stuff. And this is tall building. So I'm going to change this to tall building. And again, just to be sure, I'm going to copy that name over. Particularly when you're working with kind of obscure names. I mean, these are a little easier because it's tall building, but if it's like something numbered or has some weird naming convention, you want to just copy and paste. It's easier that way. Okay, so my tall building is in. Is it in fact a PNG though? I think it is. Yeah, it should be. Okay, so let's go ahead and open up our Unity thing.
It's 215.
Say again?
It's 215, just letting you know.
Oh, okay. And there's our building in there. Now, obviously, we've got to adjust it. And, with all of these, when you bring them in, you've got to adjust them and make sure they're sized correctly and things like that. But that's just as far as editing this and creating the assets for that. That's just a few different things you can do to recreate it. All right, any questions? So what I'll do is on Thursday, we didn't get time to actually like incorporate this into the game. We're just making changes on this. On Thursday, I'll do a little like half session and I'll record that one as well of taking, now we have these assets, how do we take them into the platformer and make sure that they fit the way they're supposed to fit? Because there's a number of issues there. If we look at it, you can see that it's, the building's like really large, the trees are really small, the bush is really small. So I need to go through and show you how to actually incorporate these in. But I mean, you can see even just with this building, it's not super cool or anything, but it's got kind of a cool, unique look, right? I mean, it's, I don't know if I'd buy this game, but I may pay like $1 for it. I mean, I think that looks kind of cool. So, you can do, even if you're not you don't have like artistic, you don't know how to draw and stuff like that, you can take assets off the web and just mess with them in Photoshop and do some really cool stuff. So that's what I'm encouraging you guys to do. If you're an artist and you want to really, kind of show your artistic incline, feel free to do that. That's I'm happy to see it. If you're not an artist, you just want to do something, but you want it to look semi-cool, then just use some of the techniques I showed you today. And we'll do a similar thing with sound and with the animation so you guys can get a sense of that as well. All right, good to go. Any questions on that? Is this fun? Is this helpful?
For sure.
Okay, good. I just need somebody to say that, give me some kind
I got
of
you.
affirmation. All right, guys. So that's it for today. Like I said, you don't have to come on Thursday if you don't want to. You can just watch the video that I'll make, but I'll do a little session on Thursday just talking about incorporating these back into the game, just so you guys know how to do that. All right. Okay, have a great one, and we will talk to you on Thursday.